Hello, just generating you even more knife content today. We're talking today about my 5 favorite skinny knives. Now, I like a skinny knife. I find I keep my knife in the same pocket as my phone because I don't want my phone and my knife getting jumbled up with my keys. So having a skinny knife, having a knife that is narrow on the flat, on the face axis, on the the handle merging with, oh, here we go. On this axis here, spoilers as to what one of them is, I suppose. Oh, I just wanted to keep it a secret right until anyway. Yeah, knives that are narrow this way across, so I can fit them next to my phone, and even lately with a pen as well in the same pocket, leaving my keys to be all on their own in the other pocket, not harming anything else. So there's a few challenges to do a good thin knife, and the two of them are generally having a blade that still cuts well because you've got less distance. So say if you think of a cold steel American lawman, right? You can have a decently thick spine, but when you've got enough of the blade face to terminate down gradually into that edge apex, you can cut well with even a slightly thicker blade. Whereas any level of thickness in a thin or a skinny faced blade is going to be, translating into sticking through objects and being less of a nice cutter. So usually you need to go with thinner blade stock or with a hollow grind or just a really well done flat grind. So that's the first challenge. And the second is grip, getting a good grip around a skinny knife. Generally, lots of really good skinny knives have a little bit of curve or a little bit of shape to them even still. Some of them are boxy, some of them are a little bit too much like holding a twig, and that is why I did hesitate. I thought of the CRKT CEO, but it is just a little bit too skinny for me. I have a larger hand and my hand wraps around that CEO just a couple too many times almost, so that was out. So anyway, those are the two challenges that generally you get with knives like this, and the 5 that I've chosen meet those challenges, and I'm going to talk about what they are right now. So the first one, yes, I've spoiled it, it's the Benchmade bailout. So the bailout here is the M4 aluminium version, and my friend Chris sold me this one with this attachment here, getting rid of the glass breaker on the end, that lanyard loop thing, and just putting a nice full finished backspacer there. So nice and much improved. This is an M4 steel, and this does the blade well by making it nice and thin. In M4, which is a steel that's going to be able to hold a nice thin edge for a good long amount of time. The handle here has some contouring on it, so it still makes it a pleasant grip. This is the thickest of all of these thin knives. None of them are Spyderco. Spyderco has the same problem where, because they use the holes, and they are usually quite ergonomic in the hand, they are generally on the thicker side of knives. The most successful Spydercos at being skinny, such as the Spidey Chef, the Native, things like that, they hide the spider hole, and so you don't have that thumb hump, but even still, the handle logos usually add more millimeters than to really qualify them for this category of blade. Next up, my Benchmade 945, and this is probably the next thickest knife, and it is still not a thick knife at all. Love the 940 as well, very similar reasons. This one has slight humps, slight contours, both sides to give you a nice enough grip. The blade on this one is starting to demonstrate the issues you do have with a thinner blade though. These aren't known to be particularly slicing and, fine open L style cutters. They are a little bit thick, a little bit chunky, and a little bit more rugged, I suppose is the best way to put it. I like it. I can sharpen it to the point where it performs like I want it to, but you need to sort of thin out that edge just a little bit to get it how I like it. But overall, it takes up very little pocket real estate. When it's closed, you barely notice it's there. Axis lock doesn't hurt. It's probably the most fun mechanism, and a relatively strong and competent one as well. And the steel is good. The S30V is totally fine. I like the aluminium. You can get them in carbon fiber and S90V. You can get them in G10 and S30V. I like the aluminium. I think it looks the best, and I like the felty feeling of it as well. So this is a favorite. This is one of my 2 or 3 favorite EDC knives at the moment. So it's great. Next, I've got 2 front flipping knives. So front flipper is a great way to save some space. This is the Real Steel Metamorph Mini in micarta and M390 steel. Great mix of materials, really well done little knife. So the front flipper adds only extra distance or length to the top of the knife rather than having a flipper out on the side banging into things. So the front flipper, you crank your thumb over the top, fire it out, And the metamorph is starting to be a little bit more stick-like than, you know, perhaps the 940 or the bailout are. Still not an uncomfortable knife in hand. The mini metamorph here is a little less boxy than the metamorph proper, which does feel a little bit like a pack of Pez or something that you're holding. Not a bad knife at all, but this one, because of the softness of the micarta and the softer edges and the slight decrease in size again, does a little bit better job of feeling less boxy and more natural in the hand. Great slicing, great cutter. They've thinned out the blade nicely. It's kind of got a swedge on the back. Not a huge amount of blade face, but they've done well in making it a decent slicer at the same time. So Metamorph Mini M390, great knife. Fourth is a knife I've had for about a month and a half now, the Civivi Lazar. This is an interesting take on the skinny knife. You can see it's got a fairly pronounced crook or bend in the handle, which seems a little more dramatic on this side, but in fact more of a straight line, sort of bone-shaped handle on the inside, which is kind of where you feel it the most. Really comfortable handle. You can really get a positive grip on this guy, and for the amount of actual material they're using, that's a really good result. So a larger Isham design, this one. I love the blade shape. I love the looks of it. I love the purple color. Nice and different. Again, the front flipper saves the space of having a flipper on the back. This reminds me of the Kaiser, what is it? The Vanguard, a little bit like a knife. I used to have it, I used to love it from Kaiser. This kind of does the same thing, but a little bit better. This is in 10CR15 MOV steel, which seems to be at least a VG10 quality steel. But you know, that'll be tested properly in the full review, which I'm working on at the moment. But overall, it's been used a lot as my EDC blade lately, and I'm enjoying it a great deal. So definitely a great contender, and it does the thin knife justice. The concept really well done. The blade stock wouldn't want to be any thicker though, because it is starting to have that problem where you've got thicker stock and less time to terminate it into a nice fine edge. So I'm going to sharpen it probably a little differently than it came from the factory to make it cut like I like to cut, but it is performing as well as you'd really want it to as an average knife user anyway from the box. So great little skinny knife to be sure. And lastly, I've dusted off a classic channel staple for years back. I haven't seen it, haven't used it for a while. I found it in one of the boxes that I'd put aside when I moved, and I instantly fell back in love when I picked it up, the Almar ultralight Falcon. Very, very thin, skinny knife in all senses of the word. Super duper light use. It does have a lockback on it, but it definitely doesn't, promote huge amounts of strength. It's got a slight bit of wiggle to it. AUS 8 steel. These were really expensive. They were never a great deal, but something about it, and I think it's just my gravitation towards really simple, utilitarian kitchen style looking knives, really does the job for me. It's so thin, the blade, it slices really, really well, performs good for the steel that it is. I have sharpened this fairly dramatically, because as I've sharpened it and sharpened it and sharpened it, as you do with an AUS 8 knife, you do lose a bit of blade. So as I've continued to sharpen it, I've steepened that edge a bit. I think right now it's rolling about a 15 degree per side edge. Cuts great at the moment. Don't know how much longer it's going to live for, but there it is. A classic pattern. I love the Almars. It's such a shame they don't make these Japanese ones anymore, or if they do, they're nearly impossible to get. But yeah, lots of good memories of this one here. Just earlier in the piece, I bought this off Nick Shabazz when he reviewed it. I saw his review on it and I wanted it, so that was probably 5 years ago now. So yeah, it's interesting how these things go. Anyway, that's my 5 favorite skinny knives. My favorite type of pattern, almost. My other favorite knives, of course, I love my Spydercos. It's not everything, but it's certainly a category of blade that I really do enjoy, especially for legitimate EDC when I'm leaving the home and I'm loading my pockets full of my daily carry stuff. They do really well. Anyway, thanks for watching a little quick top 5 video. Hope you're enjoying. More reviews with bigger editing and all that sort of stuff, obviously coming out as well, but a bit of knife chat's fun from time to time, isn't it? See you in the next film. Goodbye.